Hi, I'm Tim Bradner. Welcome to Capital Views. And thank you today, Curtis Thayer, Director of the Alaska Energy Authority, for joining us. Curtis, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Curtis, I thought it might be useful if I could just ask you to explain what Alaska Energy Authority is. I mean, a lot of people are familiar with the alphabet soup of state agencies like ADA and Alaska Housing Finance Corporation. So what does AEA do that's different than these other organizations?
Well, we are a corporate agency that is run by a board of directors. And our whole mission in life is to actually lower the cost of energy, not only in urban Alaska, but in rural Alaska. And we do that a couple different ways. We own the Bradley Lake, which is the largest hydro project in the state outside of Homer that brings power all the way to Fairbanks. We own 200 miles of transmission lines in urban Alaska. And then in rural Alaska, we do the power cost equalization program, bulk fuel, and also the powerhouses in about 197 rural villages.
And a lot of these programs are, it's directly or indirectly state funds. Alaska Energy Authority sort of coordinates the financing.
Yes, there's actually a couple different ways. When it comes to our owned assets, that's a partnership we work with utilities to manage, and they provide a lot of the O&M expenses of that. This last year, we were able to pay off the Bradley bonds, which was a huge milestone after 30 years. And in rural Alaska, our PCE program, Power Cost Equalization, is with the endowment of about $1 billion that was established by the legislature. And then we work with our funding partners, the Denali Commission, with the state funding on a lot of our capital budgets, especially our powerhouses and our bulk fuel in rural Alaska. So it's kind of a mixture of funding sources.
And Curtis, maybe you could talk a little bit about Bradley Lake as an example. It's been with us for years, but a lot of people have forgotten how important it is, how it developed. It is sort of tied in with the long-range intertie, which sends the power to Fairbanks. But this is really the cheapest power in the railroad, as I understand it.
It actually is. The Bradley Lake produces power at about 4 cents a kilowatt. If you looked at natural gas here in Cook Inlet, which is primarily the driver, it's 7 to 8 cents a kilowatt. And if you look at the wind turbines at Fire Island outside the airport, they're about 9.7 cents a kilowatt. So by far, it's the cheapest power on the rail belt. The bonds were paid off this last year. And so we're working with utilities to do a large upgrade of our transmission lines, because this not only benefits people in South Central Alaska, but for example, Fairbanks receives 18% of the Bradley power, which is about 10% of the overall usage on the rail belt. And in addition, it's about 54,000 homes, of which we're looking at doing an upgrade to Bradley that could add another 25,000 homes to it. So almost increasing Bradley by 50%. So it's very important, and it's still kind of one of our keys in the future with some of our renewables.
And when was Bradley built, and how long were the bonds sold for?
The Bradley bonds were built about 30 years ago. 1991 is when it went in, and then they were just paid off this last year, last July, last July. It'll be a year.
Well, this is a real legacy project.
It definitely is. I'm saying I think it not only is it still producing power, it's still producing the lowest cost power on the railroad, and there's opportunities to upgrade it to continue that low cost power flowing into South Central for another 30 or 50 years.
And at some point, Alaska Energy Authority is very involved with this Susitna hydro project. Is there a chance still for that to be developed someday?
Well, that's one of the things that we're looking at. We were charged by the legislature about 10 years ago to look at the Susitna-Wantana. The state through AEA spent about $200 million on a FERC license. We're about $100 million shy of a FERC license of getting that in hand. And once you have that license in hand, there is a line of people that wishes to build Susitna-Wantana. So we're hoping that the state will take another look at that, because that would actually take us from having 10 to 12% renewables on the railroad being hydro to take us over 50%. And not only that, it would create 22,000 construction jobs over a 10-year period of time. And so that's one of those mega legacy projects that would clearly go for another 50 years at at the time about 6-cent power. So still cheaper than natural gas in Cook Inlet.
Yeah. And Curtis, we've always had a rule of thumb in the state that we want to aim to be 50% renewable energy. And of course, that was not set in stone. It was more of a goal. But the governor is now up the ante on that, hoping for 80%. Where are we now with renewables? We have Southeast Hydro, of course, that factors into that.
Right. There's a 50% goal for the state. The governor has with his RPS bill, hoping for 80% by 2040. And so with that, you need to have some sort of large project on the rail belt to get to that point. Like I said, Bradley would take, not Bradley, excuse me, Susitna-Wauntana would almost take us there. But there's also opportunities in wind and with solar that we have to look at. And of course, with that, you need to integrate batteries with those systems. But the utilities and AEA, we're all trying to work together to work with the governor to get to that goal of his. It's a reasonable goal. It's how we need to get there to make sure that it's not going to raise the cost, because you still got to wean yourself off the natural gas at the same time that you're moving towards renewable.
But Curtis, I think we probably should touch on the Rural Energy Fund and what it does. It's another AEA project that helps foster small rural renewable energy projects.
Right. There's a couple of things. One that we're currently right now doing what we call round 14, and that is we do have the Renewable Energy Fund that was established by the legislature. And they put about $275 million in it to help with renewable projects, primarily in rural Alaska. Up to date right now, 248 million has gone into rural Alaska. Only 34 million has gone into urban Alaska using that fund. Last year, we were able to get 4.7 million for that fund. And this year, the governor put the largest increase in the last 10 years into that, which is $15 million. And so we're hoping the legislature will pass that, as we have 39 applicants looking for that. And then next year, the governor has also indicated that he wants to support it at that higher level, which I think will just continue to grow, because a lot of what we do with Renewable Energy Fund is it's seed money to figure out what are viable projects. And then once they're viable and they have the feasibility, then they can take it to the next step and look for other funding sources. But at least we've established they're a viable project through the economics and the technical review that we do.
And as I recall, Curtis, the state REF money through the Rural Energy Fund is not the only money that goes into these. The local community has to match it also.
Exactly. There's a local match to it. And so it's really a partnership. We usually try to do about 80%, but it's truly a partnership. And then once these feasibility projects, once they're established, we can move forward. A perfect example is Halungnai, which is down on Prince of Wales Island. That started out as a Renewable Energy Fund project, and now it's a $27 million operating hydro project that's taken Prince of Wales 100% renewable. And that just happened 2 years ago. So there's success stories throughout Alaska.
Yeah, that's a good story. Curtis, you guys have a lot on your plate, so we want to wish you the best. It's in all of our interest to lower energy costs and sort of wean ourselves away from traditional sources of power in this environment that we're in. So thank you for joining us, and look forward to talking again.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Curtis.